Good morning, and welcome to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark of the Clark Law Firm. I am located at 1563 Main Street in Peckville, and I am here every Sunday from 8 to 9 a.m. on these stations to bring you valuable information that you need as a landowner relating to natural gas development here in Pennsylvania. At the Clark Law Firm, I focus solely on landowner representation for such items as gas lease negotiations, pipeline, water line agreements, and I'm going to talk today about pipeline agreements. And I'm fired up, I'm going to tell you. These are kind of my favorite shows. I talk a lot about pipelines because we need to. I'm going to talk about them today, and I think this is going to be some really valuable information, and I do suspect if you do listen regularly and if you do like shows where I get a little more fired up, I think this is going to be a show you're going to like, because I know already I'm fired up now, and I know as I talk about these things that I'm even going to get more fired up. But anyway, before I go too far in that direction, just other things that I do. I represent landowners for royalty issues, royalty deduction issues, unitization and pooling issues. I talked about that some last week, where sometimes landowners' property is not unitized, or they're not given credit for the appropriate acres that they should be getting credit. We're looking at decimal interest. You always want to check. When you get that division order, you need to check those numbers. You need to make sure they're right, because we do see there's human error. There's a lot of people involved. There's a lot of numbers involved, and sometimes it's as simple as a number being entered into the system wrong. Sometimes it's entered into the system wrong where the landowner is being shortchanged, but just worked on one this past week where the landowner was actually getting substantially more money than what they should have been receiving. Now, you may say, well, hey, that's great, but once that's caught, or once that error is corrected, in this case, it was tens and tens and tens of thousands, literally dollars per month. Well, then the company comes knocking at the door and says, hey, we overpaid you by $100,000, $200,000, or even more dollars, and you know what? We want our money back. And so maybe they're going to take it from future royalties, but in this case, it was a company that had a smaller interest in the lease. So that would take a very long time. So we got to be careful. Whether it's good or bad, we want to make sure that it's right. We want to make sure that you're getting paid correctly. Also, I've been talking more about estate planning, doing so much more estate planning work. Many of the old clients that I've had for gas leases, pipelines, these other issues, royalty issues, well, they're starting to plan more and do more with their estate planning. Other clients or other landowners, as they transition into the royalty phase, or as they get closer to the royalty phase, start saying, hey, you know what, I need to get my affairs in order here. And what I always say is, you need to have the estate plan for you, not your neighbor's plan, not somebody else's plan. You need the plan for you. So you got to make sure that you have this situation in place, or you have a plan in place that's going to fulfill what you want, your needs, and it's going to make sure that these assets are going to pass in the way that you want them to pass to your children, to charities, whatever that case may be. And I see as landowners bring in their existing wills, and some people don't even have them, but they bring in their wills and it doesn't necessarily do what they thought that their will was going to do. So we want to make sure, you need to make sure that you have a plan in place for you that's going to meet your goals and take care of what your interests are and how you want these assets to be passed on to your children or others in future generations. Also, I did a compressor station agreement recently, surface use agreements, roadway agreements all the time. So essentially, any and all agreements, negotiations related to oil and gas development, any contract, and this too, I say this and I mean this. If you're ever asked to sign a document by the gas company, you can always send it in to us, give us a call, say, hey, here's what I have. Is this something I need assistance with? And give you an honest assessment. Say, hey, yeah, you may need some help with this, or hey, maybe not. Here's your options. You decide what you want to do, but just don't go signing things, please. And again, whether I say this often, whether it's me or somebody else, somebody with experience that knows what they're doing. don't just go signing these documents. It's not just losing potentially tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands or more. It's not just that, but hey, that's important. But it's also protections to your property. Are you exposing yourself to potential liability? Do you even have to agree to this? Are you now going to have a roadway, above ground pipes, valves, meter site? Are you going to have things in your property that you didn't have to agree to, and you didn't want those things there? So you got to make sure, you have to make sure that before you sign any document, before you sign a document, that you understand it, that you've had it reviewed, and you're comfortable in doing it. Far too many people haven't done that, and far too many people later on pay the consequences. And I get those calls where people call in and say, hey, they want to do this. The company wants to do this. They want to put this here. They want to put that there. They want to put a roadway here. And we say, and the company says we have the right to do it. Well, why? Because you signed another document, because your gas lease allows it, or because your pipeline agreement allows it. And you got to be careful. These companies are skilled. They've been doing this for a very, very long time, and they know what they need to do. And so when they write these agreements, and when you sign these agreements and you haven't negotiated them, they're going to be acquiring far more rights than what that landman told you that they were interested in doing. So you have to be aware of that. Again, I am Attorney Doug Clark. You're listening to All Things Marcellus. If you need representation, you can always contact me, 570-307-0702. That's 570-307-0702. I have clients all across the state of Pennsylvania, from Greene County, which is in the southwestern portion by Ohio and West Virginia, all the way up to Susquehanna County in the northeastern part of the state as well. Also, I represent people who are landowners or oil and gas rights owners in Pennsylvania, who these clients reside all across the country. New client this week from California, others in Texas, and again, all over the country. And you've heard me say before, including London, Micronesia, Alaska, and some other places pretty far out there as well. So again, if you need representation, you can always contact me directly at 570-307-0702. Don't want to make this a big commercial, like to get out this information, but also for information. You listen to today's show, been doing the show since August of 2010. August 2010, been doing All Things Marcellus. So you can go pagasleaseattorney.com. That's pagasleaseattorney.com. We'll put up today's show. That'll get up tomorrow, so you can check out today's show. So if you can't listen every Sunday from 8 to 9 a.m., or you're in an area that doesn't pick up this station, you can always go to pagasleaseattorney.com. We'll have the show up there. Also, check out pipelineattorney.com. There's a lot of great information, and I've been saying this for some time, but I am committed. Just time, time. We're going to be working. I'm doing more work on a pipeline site. We've recently renovated and revamped the gas site, and I'm working on the pipeline site now as well. So, okay, with all those things, I am now I'm going to try to stay calm, especially at the beginning. I'm going to try to stay calm the whole time. But I want to talk about pipelines today. And I say to everybody, clients, I say it in the radio show, if you go to the website and you read the blogs, you see the information out there, we need to understand what we're dealing with here. We need to understand we're dealing with these very large companies that have a very lengthy history of doing what they're doing here in Pennsylvania, whether it be leasing gas rights, whether it be acquiring pipeline right-of-way and easements, roadways, any of this activity related to oil and gas development. They've been doing this for a very long time. So they are very skilled. They're trained. They know what they're doing. They know what works. So when they communicate with you, the landowner, it's not that this is the first time that they've talked to somebody. They understand, okay, what are the things that we need to say to make things happen? And one of the primary things now, I still have clients who are dealing with gas leasing, but in most areas, there's nowhere near as much gas leasing as there used to be. So what do we deal with a lot? What do I deal with a lot nowadays? A lot of pipelines, a lot of pipeline agreements. I've hit, I believe now, 50 different companies working or negotiating and working on pipeline agreements across Pennsylvania. I mean, I say that all the time because it staggers me. 50 different companies. That's amazing. Hundreds upon hundreds of miles of pipeline. And so what do we learn from that? Well, we learn, what do these companies say? And what happens is it's so much of this stuff is kind of textbook. And I'm going to paraphrase from something that a client sent me, that a landman sent him on behalf of one of these companies. But what I want to talk about now is an article that appeared. It was stated March 19th. And there's a lot of companies out there. And so one of the companies that deal with a lot now is Southwestern. They have acquired a lot of property. They're developing property. They've acquired property from other companies. So they're a very active company here in Pennsylvania. But it doesn't have to just be Southwestern. It can be any of these companies. So there was an article. Well, let me take a step back. So Southwestern's out there. Their landmen are out there seeking to acquire these pipeline right-of-way agreements and easements. Well, what do they want to do? They want to acquire, just like anybody else, these easements at the lowest possible price. The lowest possible price. Well, what do? That's going to require some convincing, some talking with these landowners and trying to persuade, hey, almost like in some cases, poor me. We need to get this gas to market. We really want to get it out there. We want to get you royalties. Pour us, work with us. Let's be partners. We want to be fair to you as the landowner. All of those items, and there's so many more. So what do we see? Well, and we've seen this with other companies too. We've seen it occur with Cabot. We've seen it with Chesapeake, and we've seen it with other companies where the gas companies out there, they're acquiring these pipeline right-of-way agreements. The best argument really that a company, in my experience, can put up to the landowner is, oh, well, we want to get you royalties and we need pipelines to get the gas to market. Well, a lot of landowners say, hey, this is what I'm in here for. A lot of landowners have these visions of making a lot of money from royalties, and some will, and a lot of people won't, but some will. There's no doubt about it. And yes, you can't get gas to market without pipelines. However, those pipeline right-of-way agreements can generally be a whole lot better than what is being offered to you. In most cases, a whole lot better. So what do we look at then? So the company says, well, geez, we need to get this gas to market. We want to be, this is my one that just absolutely kills me. We want to be fair. We want to be fair. We want to be fair. This isn't the same company who says we want to be fair. So since we paid your neighbor $5,000 or $6,000 for their lease, we're going to offer you the same thing. Or because your neighbor has 18, 20, 21% royalty, we're going to give that to you as well. Companies want to be fair when fairness means you get a bad deal because your neighbor got a bad deal. Because all the people in your area signed a bad agreement, we want to be fair to them. I laugh because, really, if it wasn't sad, it would be funny. Because how does that reasoning work? Everybody got a bad deal around you, so we need to be fair and give you a bad deal also. Think about that. Think about that. Because these other people did something foolish or we took advantage of them because they didn't know, because of that, you have to be in the same situation. You need to be treated in the same way. That is insane. That's crazy to me. And that can't happen. That can't happen. And so when I hear that argument, it drives me crazy. And you as a landowner, the same thing. That should drive you crazy. I've said things like this before. So if your neighbor overpays for their truck or their vehicle, then when you go to the car dealership, you're going to have to pay that same price. And it can go on and on and on and on, whatever we want to say. But the idea that because your neighbor signed a bad agreement and we don't want to make them mad, we need to pay you the same thing. That is crazy, and you should never, in my opinion, should that ever drive any decision as you as a landowner. You need to look at the biggest picture. Okay, I want to come back. I'm up against this, but got sidetracked on that. And please, when you hear that, think about what you're being told. Think about that. And then just say to the gentleman, well, my neighbor signed for $5,000, or his gas lease has 15% and mine's only 12.5%, or his has 18 and mine's only 15. Since you're all about being fair, how about being fair to me and bring my royalty percentage up to the same as my neighbor? Ask that question. And you know what the answer is going to be? Well, we can't do that. The market was different when you signed. The market was different. Well, you know what? When that landman comes to you for a pipeline agreement or a roadway agreement or any other type of agreement, that's a market that is at that moment, and it's different than what your neighbor, when the market was when your neighbor signed. Think about that. I'm up against the break. I'm going to talk. Stay with me because I'm just getting started. You're listening to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark of the Clark Law Firm. I'm going to be right back after this break. Welcome back to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark of the Clark Law Firm. I am here every Sunday on these stations from 8 to 9 a.m. to give landowners valuable information that you need regarding natural gas development here in Pennsylvania. And today, I am talking about pipelines, and I'm not going to probably go into real deep detail in the contracts, but what I want to talk about is to make sure that we're educating people as to how this process works. And one thing that you should never feel as a landowner ever is guilt or sympathy to these companies. There are reasons to enter into agreements. I represent landowners. We enter into agreements all the time, but it's never done because of guilt or sympathy or because we are fooled. We can't be fooled. You have to enter into strong agreements, and they need to protect your property, and we need to maximize your financial compensation. The company's goal, and that's part of it, and that's the thing. We just need to know this, and we should know this. Is pretty common sense. Their goal is to sign the most favorable agreement possible for them. The problem is they're telling people certain things to persuade them, and people are buying into this stuff, and people are signing agreements like a pipeline right-of-way agreement. In my opinion, look, everybody can do what they want to do. My opinion, no one out there, unless this is a line going right to the well site on your property, and we still need to talk about that, nobody should be signing an agreement at $15 per foot, in my opinion. These companies are going to make a tremendous amount of money. They are making a tremendous amount of money. Them crying poor doesn't work. Whenever gas prices go up, are they going to come back to you and say, oh, hey, gas prices are going up? Yeah, we asked you to sign for $15 per foot before because we were in gas prices were real low. We needed some extra money. But now, since the gas prices have gone up and they've doubled, we're going to come back and give you more money. No, it's not going to work. And you know what? I have clients who get $100 per foot on occasion, sometimes even more than that. But we have to look at situations as they are unique situations. So this isn't that I'm routinely getting $100 per foot for all my clients. Sometimes we get more than $100 per foot. Sometimes we get less. A lot of times we get less. But what we always get is the best possible agreement that we can negotiate and we can get for that particular situation. The key is you have to understand your situation. But my point here now is companies are going out there crying poor, trying to say we need to get this gas to market. They try to act like you as a landowner, if you push for more money, you're going to slow everything down. And in my opinion, in almost all cases, that's garbage. It's not really what we see. But hey, look, those are the tools. So here you are sitting at the kitchen table. The guy says to you, oh, we need to get this gas to market. If you sign, it's going to enable us to get it to market sooner, get you royalties. And of course, hey, don't we all know that's where the big money is? So here's the pen, here's the paper. You look at it, though, and that agreement says, well, they have 5 years to build the pipeline. They have 3 years to build the pipeline. They have an option of whether they're even going to do it. You need to understand all of these circumstances. They also say, well, the price of gas is really low, so the budgets are tight, so we can only offer you $15 a foot, $20 a foot, $25 a foot. Well, I'm telling you, don't buy that. You have to understand your circumstance. You have to understand your circumstance. I could sit here and say that for an hour over and over and over to try to get it across to people. And it's just true. Now, if you understand your circumstance and you're good and you want to sign whatever the agreement is, well, then go ahead and do it. I've never seen an agreement that we were not able to increase financial compensation, or at the absolute worst, make it a much better agreement with regard to protecting your property, protecting you from liability, and setting up a situation where future activity can result in additional compensation. I've never seen an agreement where we haven't been able to improve it in some fashion. And sometimes agreements where they're offered $20,000 maybe end up signing for $100,000 or more. Sometimes you're offered $50,000, end up signing for a couple $100,000. Again, that's not every case, but it occurs. It occurs. And you have to understand what? Your circumstances, your personal situation. I am Attorney Doug Clark. You're listening to All Things Marcellus here every Sunday from 8 to 9 a.m. You miss any of today's show, you want to go back, you want to listen to today's show, any of the other recent shows, go to pagasleaseattorney.com, pagasleaseattorney.com. Also, talking about pipelines, go to pipelineattorney.com as well, pipelineattorney.com. Okay, so here's an example. Companies are out there, say I'm gonna not pick on, but I'm gonna just talk factually here. Southwestern. So Southwestern, very active now. They've acquired other leases. Their company is really on the ground, working on the ground, really moving forward now. Probably more than any other company in Pennsylvania right now. So they are out there. They're looking to acquire pipeline right-of-way agreements and easements. And just like anybody, you can't fault them. What's their job? Acquire these pipeline right-of-way easement agreements, get this gas to market. But how do we want to do that? At the lowest possible cost. So you can take this as a landowner. I'm going to give you this information, and you digest it and make with what you want out of it. So March 19th, a few days ago. So this is an article from March 19th. And this article says, the headline is, Southwestern Energy sells Pennsylvania pipelines for $500 million. Southwestern Energy sells Pennsylvania pipelines for $500 million. Now, just want to say, do you think they lost money on that deal? Do you think that all the landowners that signed at $15 per foot might have been able to sign a little bit higher? $500 million. So goes on to say, this is from Fuel Fix is the website here. Okay, so it says Houston natural gas producer Southwestern Energy will sell its gathering assets in Pennsylvania for $500 million. The company announced Thursday morning. Now, this article is March 19, 2015. San Antonio-based Howard Midstream Energy Partners, an independent midstream company with offices in San Antonio and Houston, is the purchaser. The deal includes 100 miles of natural gas gathering pipelines serving the Marcellus Shale. Southwestern intends to use the proceeds of this sale to help pay off a $500 million loan that matures in December of 2016. The deal is expected to close in the second quarter. Now, this is a quote. We are excited to have this deal in place as it represents a major step towards completing our acquisition financing plan that we previously announced, said Steve Mueller, Southwestern's chairman and CEO, in a statement. In a separate announcement, Howard Midstream said it plans to build and operate a new natural gas gathering system for Southwestern in Northeast Pennsylvania. The companies didn't report the cost of that deal. Howard Midstream Energy Partners operations until now have largely focused on the Eagle Ford in South Texas, where it owns and operates more than 500 miles of pipeline. Quote, "This is a significant transaction for us, this is a significant transaction for us as these established assets place Howard Energy Partners in the heart of the prolific Marcellus Shale," Howard's president and co-founder Brad Bynum said in the statement. Okay, so that again, article from March 19, 2015, headline, Southwestern Energy sells Pennsylvania pipelines for $500 million. I'm going to go on. Here's another article that I found, picked up, was on a Business Wire, and here's just some of the parts of it here. It says that the gathering systems serving the Marcellus Shale region include approximately, and this is talking about the cell here, the gathering systems serving the Marcellus Shale region include approximately 100 miles of natural gas pipeline with nearly 600 million cubic feet per day capacity and 53,000 horsepower of compression. Okay, talking about this cell, goes on to state, in addition to the existing systems, Howard Energy plans to design, construct, and operate a new natural gas system for Southwestern in Tioga County, Pennsylvania. Once fully operational, the new system is expected to add up to 380 million cubic feet per day of capacity in the area. So it says earlier, the cell involved nearly 600 million cubic feet per day capacity, looking to add another 380, and you're just shy of 1 billion cubic feet per day. Then it goes on to state the acquisition is a testament. This is the Howard Energy Partners, Brad Bynum, saying that this acquisition is a testament to our long-term growth strategy to broaden our footprint and build a diversified portfolio of large-scale assets and revenue streams. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot of money that's going to be made, that's being made, and going to continue to be made here by the companies. We're excited about the development potential in the Marcellus, and we are honored to enter into this arrangement with Southwestern Energy, one of the largest producers in the area. So, and it goes on to state that Howard Energy plans to open an office in Pennsylvania upon the closing, which again is scheduled to be closed in the second quarter of this year. So, ladies and gentlemen, what are we talking about? They sold their assets for $500 million. Howard Energy now is going to put in a new gathering system. So, ladies and gentlemen, $500 million sold for. Going to be putting in this new system. Anticipated just shy of 1 billion cubic feet per day. You know what? These companies, the gas company, the pipeline company, can easily afford to pay more than $15 per foot to you as the landowner for a pipeline right-of-way and easement area. And not only can they afford it, but it is also very reasonable. And you take a company that's buying, Southwestern and their affiliates were buying pipeline right-of-ways in Susquehanna County at $32 per foot, but then in Tioga offering $16 roughly. Why? Why is that area worth less than other areas? Why? In my opinion, it's not at all. Here we have a company saying this is a prolific area, and here we have a company crying poor, saying, hey, we can only pay this. This is what we're paying in this area. And then you turn around and you sell your assets for $500 million. $500 million. So every time that they have someone sign on the cheap or for less money than what the market would dictate, that's just more money they make in the end. So you as a landowner need to understand these things. These companies, look, these pipelines, they pay this fee to you once. You don't get yearly fees. You don't get annual fees. You get a one-time fee. For you as a landowner to enter into a pipeline and right-of-way agreement where there is no right to install that pipeline on your ground on your property for $15 per foot, to me, in almost all cases, is a shame. Because what happens is the companies would pay more. The market should be higher. The only reason why anybody would receive $15 per foot for a pipeline right-of-way that the company doesn't have the right to install is because they've been able to persuade people that somehow that's a good thing for you. Where if everybody said, no, I'm not going to sign unless it's $50 per foot, then every agreement where there was no rights to install it would be at least $50 per foot. And you know what? These companies would make a whole lot of money. Every time that you think about when they acquire these, they sell it for $500 million. Do you think they lost money in that deal? So every time that they sign up a landowner for one of these agreements at whatever price, even $30 per foot, in my mind is too low. But if people are going to sign at that, then people are going to sign at that. But every time they sign you up for below whatever that threshold is where they're going to make money, they're making money. So they're just looking to drive your price down as much as possible. And how do they do that? Well, the price of gas, we can't get royalties to you. Boy, we really want to get you royalties. We're so great. We're all about you. We want to get you royalties. And to get royalties, we need to get the gas to market. Think about it. Think about it. There is plenty of money there to give you a fair deal. Plenty of money to give you a fair deal. And across the board, normally we see $30 as being the low end for I would say about the majority of the companies, around $30. And so we got other areas where people are signing at 10 and 15. And the only reason why that's occurring is because those landowners are not educated on these issues. Not that they're not educated, but on these issues, and understand what is the market and what is going on out there. So, and they're also unfortunately believing the things that they're telling or being told by the company landman who works for the company. And we need to stand up and you need to make sure that you're getting a fair and appropriate deal. I am Attorney Doug Clark. I'm going to keep going. I'll be right back after this break. You're listening to All Things Marcellus. I'm here every Sunday from 8 to 9 a.m. and I'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark of the Clark Law Firm. Again, I represent landowners and only landowners. And if you haven't been able to tell, I don't represent pipeline companies, and I don't represent gas companies, and I don't get invited to, somebody asked me, so I bet you don't get invited to too many of the gas and pipeline company golf outings. No, I don't. But at the same time, I have a very good working relationship with most companies. The thing is they know that whenever we're going to be involved in discussions and negotiations, that I understand what's going on, that I'm going to educate my client as to, do you have to do this? And, in most cases, in almost all cases, you do not have to do anything in most cases. And the other part is, and this is a really big point, and I've said this, and it's a hard concept for people, and you really have to look at your case. So many of the times that I say that, message boards, things like that are great, but you need to look at your situation. I can have a client where their neighbors all signed at $15 or $25 or whatever that number is per foot, and this landowner is able to get, my client's able to get $100 or more per foot. Or maybe we can't, but we understand why we can't. And you need to look at your situation. You can't say, well, my neighbor did this guy did this person did this lady did this. You need to look at your specific situation. And you need to understand, can I say no? Do I want to say no? And even if the company, and this is it, even if the company does have the ability, and this is something that is stretched, it can be very misleading, it's something sometimes is just totally incorrect, but if a company says, well, we have the ability to do something under the terms of the oil and gas lease, most important thing, don't take their word for that. Absolutely do not take their word for that. A countless number of times have landowners been told that, and it's just simply not true. Simply not true. Or maybe it's true, but it's not completely true. And what happens is companies will say that because that's a very powerful tool. Remember, it's not their first rodeo. It's a very powerful tool to say, well, we can do this under the lease, and guess what? We're going to give you money just because we're nice guys. That's who we are. We want to be your partner. Come here, let me put my arm around you. We're going to give you $15 per foot, even though we don't have to. Well, again, I haven't seen a lot where companies do things because they're nice guys. Ask all the people with royalty complaints. Ask, I talk to people every day. Ask all those people, do you think the companies are out there just to be nice guys? And that's not what we see, quite frankly. And in fact, we see now where landowners don't have this leasing leverage, like with the gas lease. The company says, hey, here's your offer. Take it or leave it. No, we're not going to negotiate this. Yeah, I don't care if you have 3 acres and your house is on it. I'm still not going to give you a no surface agreement. Take it or leave it. We'll cut you out. We don't need you. That's the mentality. Now, when there's a leasing frenzy, it's hey, come on over. We're going to serve you cookies and milk. We'll have a little party. We'll give you some soft drinks here. Let's do this. Let's do that. Come on over. We'll take care of you. We're good guys. We want to be a great company. Well, you know what's going on now? Those same great companies are saying, listen, you have to agree to modify your lease or we're going to let you go. We're just going to let your lease drop and we're not going to develop your property. That's what we're dealing with. So we see this all the time. So here you are now as a landowner who you're about to enter into or you're considering something like a pipeline right-of-way agreement. You need to understand what you're doing and what the mentality is of that company. So I don't care what they say to you. There's all kinds of lessons that we can just look at very clearly and say, you need to take care of yourself today because that agreement's what's going to dictate what happens in the future. And I've been in negotiations with these companies, and you sit there, and the companies, they apply so much pressure at times, and they want the landowner to feel guilty, and you're going to single-handedly slow these things down. And because of you, and this drives me insane, because of you, your neighbors aren't going to get royalties. That's just simply not true. That's just simply not true because they can go around you. They can go around you, and they do go around people. And there's a lot of people out there who say, you know what? No, I'm never going to agree to a pipeline right away on my property. And the company doesn't have the rights. So then they go to you, and you're a neighbor, and they say, we want to put the pipeline. And you're like, I really don't want to. But you're a nice person, and, you're just trying to be nice and say, well, yeah, I don't want to. And they see that you're a nice person. So what do? Here's the weak link. The neighbor says, no way, get the heck out of here. I'm never going to agree. But this person, at least they're talking to us. So now let's talk about, well, this is going to be such a good thing for your area. It's going to take care of your neighbors. You're getting royalties. Wouldn't you like to see your neighbors get royalties? Well, you know what? That doesn't work that way. And yeah, maybe the neighbors would get royalties, but how come that discussion isn't happening with your other neighbors? Why are you the person that should have why are you the person that's single-handedly going to stop all these people from getting royalties? Well, you know what? They'll pay you. Say you say, I don't want this, but you're offering me $20,000. I don't want this, but if you give me, $500,000 or you give me $250,000, well, maybe at some point it makes it worth it to me that I do, but I really don't want it. Well, I've been involved in those type of discussions many times, and you know what? Way more than what you would probably think, a company ends up paying it because they have so much more money to be made here when they get these pipelines in the ground. So as a landowner, thinking about signing at $15 per foot, to me, makes no sense whatsoever. These companies are making a whole lot of money. They're going to continue to make money. Those pipelines are going to be in the ground for 50, 100, and probably 100 plus years, and we need to be thinking about that. So don't sell yourself short. And I talked earlier, just because your neighbors signed a bad deal, or just because the company paid people in your area lower money, well, that sure as heck doesn't mean that you need to accept lower money, and you shouldn't. Quite frankly, you shouldn't. I am Attorney Doug Clark. You're listening to All Things Marcellus here every Sunday from 8 to 9 a.m., talking about pipeline right-of-way agreements and talking about this idea of companies saying, well, the gas prices are low. We need to get the gas to market. We want to get started right away. All those things. But remember, then they'll give you an agreement, and that agreement says, well, we don't have to even start construction for 2, 3, and usually it's 3 or 5 years into the future. You deal with these all the time. Companies in a big hurry. You sign an agreement, and then it's gone. Nothing happens for a very long time, years. So you have to watch out for that. And one of those things, well, yeah, we're going to do this. We're going to start in the next 6 months. All right, fine. Let's put that in the agreement. Well, we don't know. Things may come up. Watch for all those things. Okay. Now, I started saying it's like a textbook. I think there is some like textbook, and they have these bullet points when you're going out to talk to a landowner as a company landman for a pipeline right-of-way agreement. Here's some of the best tools that you can have, and we talked about them before. But communication. I'm just going to paraphrase because I don't want to be too detailed. But a client says, hey, really don't want this pipeline, and really don't think you're offering enough money. We know that most people, and we know that you're offering, you company, you're making the offer to me, you're paying more than double this, or at least double this in other areas. Why is my property less valuable? Well, what we have, and I'll talk let's talk like Tioga and Lycoming, and then you go to like to Potter and McKean and Elk, and you go to these other counties where you're not seeing the same level of development. Well, they're starting really, really low, because people are going to go ahead and sign when they get these offers at $15 a foot and sometimes $10 a foot. So why start at a higher number when you're going to have some people to sign? So they're going to go out there, they're going to put the full court press on the landowner and say, hey, I want to get this gas to market. Royalties are where the big money is here. So then they get people to sign. Now here's the domino effect, and how brilliant is this? You go out there and you get everyone that's going to sign whatever you put in front of them. So you get those landowners to all sign at $15 a foot. So you get hundreds of them, because there's a lot of people out there that will just sign anything, and they're going to believe what the company's telling them. You shouldn't do that. But there's a lot of people out there. So now here you are as a company. You say, well, geez, we got all these guys to sign at $15. What's the new tool in our toolbox? Then we go to the next landowner. Well, we want to be fair, and so since all these other people signed at 15, we need to keep the price at 15. Now, really, is that how it's supposed to work? Think about that. And that is exactly what they do. Well, it doesn't work that way. It didn't work that way with leasing. They didn't go and say, they tried, but they said, okay, well, they didn't come to people who were offered $5 and $10 and $25 an acre, and then later on say, well, we have to pay everybody $25 an acre because that's what we offered these other guys and that's what we paid them. No, the market dictated. People weren't signing at $25. Well, you know what now? Say you're in Tioga County, you should consider strongly, and again, it has to be a specific. We got to look at your case, but you should consider in your case, we don't like signing at $15, and we don't care what our neighbors signed at. What we care about is what our rights are and what the market is for us, and whether we want to do this or we don't want to do it. But if you can say no, I can think of it's really hard for me. It is very hard and difficult for me to say to anyone, if you can say no to these agreements and they don't have the right to do this, and that's very tricky, and we have to look at it because they're going to tell you we have the right to do it. That doesn't mean that's true. Also, even if they have the right to do it under, say, a gas lease, in a lot of cases, they really don't want to do it that way. Think about this. A lot of leases, when your lease expires, so do the gas pipeline rights. So now they may have a pipeline in the ground that they can't use because your lease expired. Think about that. That is a very powerful tool for you as the landowner. They're not telling you that. They are not telling you that, and you need to know that. That alone can have you avoid a pipeline or make you a whole lot more money, and at least get you a much better agreement. Think about that. If they can install a pipeline under your lease. And that lease then terminates. In the vast majority of leases, the right to have that pipeline there also terminates. So when they're offering you $15 per foot, and you're talking about, in a lot of cases, not that much money, think about. But you have to get good advice on this. You have to understand what you're doing. You need to have somebody help you. But think about this. It's not a terrible thing to say, fine, put it in under my gas lease. Go ahead. But remember, when my gas lease expires, get it out. That that can cause an enormous problem for the company, and I've seen that. We've done that. I've been directly involved in that, and I have seen companies pay substantially more money. When you know what you're doing, you understand your rights, you understand your position, and you make these arguments, and I've seen it work extremely well. You can't just listen to these guys. You really can't. You need to find out what your rights are. You need to find out what your options are. Okay, I've been going way over. I have a short last segment, but I'm going to get to, some communication, which I think is very interesting. And again, textbook. But here it is for real, black and white. I'll be right back after this break. You're listening to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark of the Clark Law Firm. Be right back. Welcome back to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark of the Clark Law Firm. Okay, I'm trying to stay calm here. All right. So we're talking about pipeline right-of-way agreements. We're talking about tools that the companies use, things that the companies say. I want to get this most important message across right now, that if you are presented with a pipeline right-of-way agreement, and I know it sounds very self-serving, but it is very true, you need to contact an attorney who's experienced in oil and gas law, pipeline right-of-way agreements, and easements, and get good quality, credible advice, and you need to understand your options. You need to have somebody look at your lease who understands what to look for. There are so many hidden things in these leases, and there are ways where you can have hidden leverage where you're going to have a very difficult time in most cases as a landowner to find that leverage. And an inexperienced attorney is going to be in the same boat. Also, you need to understand not even just that language, but how these companies operate. You need to get good quality assistance from somebody who understands these agreements, understands operational aspects, and understands how to evaluate your leverage in your case. Evaluation of leverage in your case is critical. That is critical. So when I talk about all of these things, we're talking about some general concepts and extremely important concepts. But you, as the landowner, need to understand everything you can about your case. And I promise you this, the gas company, pipeline company, landman are not going to do that for you. And when they tell you certain things, you need to understand that they work for the gas or pipeline company and not you. You need to understand those things. I routinely see where we do so much better for the client landowner than what is being offered by the company. And sometimes, there's not going to be a bunch of war stories. It's remarkably better. Not that I'm some kind of super lawyer, okay? You don't see me with my billboard out there, oh, super lawyer. No, I understand what to look for, how to evaluate these, how to advise my client, and to allow the landowner client to make the decisions when being fully informed. And that's what your lawyer should do for you, whether it's me or somebody else. You need to do that. I said before, do not be afraid of, if something is allowed under your oil and gas lease, it's not the end of the world to allow it to occur under your oil and gas lease. But that's a discussion that you need to have with your experienced counsel, your lawyer, who can talk about these advantages and disadvantages. You owe it to yourself. You really do. And I don't think that I've ever had a pipeline client ever where I ended that representation, whether it be signing an agreement or not, where I didn't feel that I absolutely offered them and provided to them a service that exceeded what they paid, as far as that they don't feel cheated, they don't feel, why did I do that? I am very comfortable to say, and you go to my website, we have 100 plus some testimonials out there from other clients. Check it out. And this isn't a commercial for me. I'm just saying to you, this is what a good attorney, and I will say, I do believe I work my butt off, so I hope I'm a good attorney, but that's what a good attorney will do for you. And so you need to make sure you're getting that assistance. Please understand your circumstances. That's a problem that people aren't doing. Understand your circumstances and the market for you in your area and what your options are. You will then make the best decision for yourself, and you will get the best possible agreement, or you won't have an agreement, but that will be the best decision for you. People are routinely being taken advantage of all the time. We talked about the company selling their pipeline assets for $500 million. Do you not think that instead of paying $10 or $15 per foot, they could have afforded to pay more and still been fair to the landowner? Well, I certainly do. I certainly do. So I want to go back again. You're listening to All Things Marcellus. This is me, Attorney Doug Clark. Check out pagasleaseattorney.com. Check out pipelineattorney.com. We'll have this radio show up tomorrow. On Monday, and other recent shows. Become educated, learn. And if you need help, you can always contact me. Don't want to make this a big commercial, but you can always contact me, 570-307-0702, 570-307-0702. Do not be taken advantage of. Whether you call me or somebody else, call someone who knows what they're doing. So I want to go back. I want to finish up with, I've talked about these different tools, these different phrases. We hear them all the time. When you're sitting there at the kitchen table with the landman, that's the first time you're hearing it. It sounds persuasive. It sounds like it makes sense. But you need to understand, you're not the only one hearing these things. So paraphrasing, and this is something that the client sent me that was sent to them, and I could pull a lot of these out. So this correspondent says, now I'm not going to get extremely specific on exact language because I want to keep things a little vague, but this is, paraphrasing things that are being stated, but from the landman, saying to the landowner that I thought that our offer of $15 per foot was competitive in this area. What makes one area less valuable than another? Normally, in these situations, it's because there's not a lot of activity in the area. Not because there's any other reason, but because there's not a lot of activity in the area and people are signing at $15 a foot because they don't know better yet. They don't have other people signing more or higher. So they take all the people that are just going to sign everything and they want you to sign at $15 a foot. I talked about that earlier. Then, so they say, this is competitive. I'm going to keep back to this because I'm short on time. So this is competitive in this area. That doesn't mean that those numbers aren't going to change. And then it states, as you're aware, we have signed many other landowners in your township for this same rate. And then it goes on, like, this is genius. Look through this. Then it goes on to say that we are going to try to keep everyone on the same pay scale to avoid landowner problems. So we're going to sign all these people really cheap. Then we're going to turn, because they'll sign anything. Then we're going to turn to the other landowners and we're going to say, hey, we want to be fair to the people who will sign anything, and we want to pay you that same exact price because we want to avoid landowner problems. Well, they didn't do that with leasing, did they? Then they go on and they say, well, we're going to do this, and we'll see this often. They want to break it down to, well, if we pay you $15 per foot, that's a total of a certain amount of money per acre, and your property isn't even worth that on a per acre price. Well, you know what? it is, and they're not buying your property. And you have value here, and they're not offering you $15 per foot even because they're being nice guys. And so, then to me it becomes insulting where it says, well, we're offering you this, which say hypothetically would be $10,000 per acre of property, and essentially your property really isn't even worth that. Well, no, that's just simply not true. And then this thing goes on to conclude that another thing to keep in mind, we cannot get gas to market without pipelines. Well, yeah, that's true. Here's another thing to keep in mind. A company just this past week sold their pipeline assets for $500 million. There are companies out there regularly paying $30, $60 per foot, and we can obtain pipeline agreements at over $100 per foot on many occasions. Companies can afford more than $15 a foot, and you shouldn't be signing at $15 a foot. You're listening to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark of the Clark Law Firm, here every Sunday from 8 to 9 a.m. Check out PAGasleaseattorney.com, pipelineattorney.com. Be back next week. Have a great week, everyone.